What's good, everybody? Doing a quick hitter here. I'm not doing a super long one because I got to go work out. So in workout gear, but wanted to do this quick hitter. So, new piece of legislation from Josh Hawley, senator from Missouri, entitled the Ending Support for Internet Censorship Act. So it's a complicated piece of legislation, but it's only about 10 pages long. Read through it. Feel like I have a pretty good handle on exactly what's going on, what's going down. So basically, the mechanism is this. It creates a new part of the FTC and a new obligation that any quote-unquote covered company, in order to get protection from Section 230, both of the liability protections from Section 230, there are two of them. There's the one that says that you are not deemed to be the publisher of third-party content for the purposes of law. And the second one is that you have a liability protection for removing or censoring content. So those are the two protections. Those are subsection A, subsection B of Section 230. And so those protections under this law will be contingent on getting a certification from the FTC that says that you have been moderating, handling content in a politically neutral manner. If you can't get that certification, you don't get the liability waiver. It's a warning shot across the bow, right? That's the first thing to understand. Now, I've had many people, Michael Malice included, I don't know if Malice is here, but Malice made this argument that it would be impossible to figure out which companies you could choose, that it wasn't a technocratic issue. Well, the covered companies are pretty obvious. If the covered companies include those who've had 30 million active users in the United States, 300 in the last year, 300 million worldwide users, or $500 million in annual revenue. And those are the people that are covered. So really simple, applies to the big tech companies like Twitter, Facebook, Google. Won't apply to startups because startups don't have 30 million users in the United States. Startups don't have $500 million in annual revenue. So then the question is your censorship being done in a politically neutral manner? Now, is this my favorite mechanism of resolving the problem of big tech censorship? Not really, right? Because it actually requires over-regulation by the FTC. Like the FTC is actually charged with creating rules and regulations to determine what constitutes politically neutral moderation, and is therefore charged with sort of setting the general tempo. And so you're not getting around the problem of regulation in the way that you would with my proposal to make platform access a civil right. But the companies really want these liability protections. A rule that says they don't get them unless they can demonstrate political neutrality in moderation decisions is a rule that will likely lead to them bending over backwards to ensure that their political moderation is neutral, right? Because it's not, with both of these liability protections combined, it's a scary thought for these tech companies to lose both of them, right? If it were just the first one, the publisher platform distinction, that one's not that scary. And if you read an article by Ron Coleman and I on Human Events like last week, or a couple weeks ago rather, talking about the Section 230 illusion and the fact that the publisher platform distinction doesn't matter because all it does is expose you to defamation liability, and defamation cases are hard to win. But that second piece of liability protection, the one that protects you from protects social media companies and other internet platforms when they remove content, when they moderate, that gives them a liability waiver for that, that's the one they don't want to lose. And that's the one they will lose if they can't get the certification. So, will it lead to big tech companies running scared to bend over backwards to show that what they're doing is politically neutral? Probably. Will it be hard to implement? Sure. But will it ultimately, I think, if it were passed, do a lot to solve social media censorship? I do. There's people saying it'll lead to them having to post KKK material. That's not obvious to me at all. There's exceptions in the law for like legitimate business arguments. I forget, let me see if I can pull it up where it says the exception for business necessity. Quote, business necessity. If the action is necessary for the business or the information involved is not speech that would be protected under the First Amendment, there is no available alternative that has a less disproportionate effect, and the provider does not act with the intent to discriminate based on a political affiliation, political party, or political viewpoint. So there is a limited number of business exceptions for these companies to allow them to moderate the really bad stuff. Probably okay. Pat asked, "Will it pass constitutional muster?" I would suspect as much. I don't think it. Again, it's because then you'd have to say that the problem is with Facebook and Twitter, but they're pretending to be platforms, not publishers. So the argument is that they're not speaking in the first place. If they're not speaking, then there's no freedom of speech on their part to restrict. It doesn't force the companies to moderate or take down any language or any arguments. It doesn't force that. What it does force them is to demonstrate that they've been acting in a politically neutral way. Some people say it's equivalent to the fairness doctrine that was used to throttle conservative speech in the 1990s. I don't think that's true either, for the same reasons that I've always thought the fairness doctrine analogies were fairly weak and tepid. Namely, that the fairness doctrine was only a big problem because TV and radio time is scarce. There's only 24 hours in a day, so having equal time was a real challenge. There's not scarcity in social media platform space. There's not scarcity in social media platform access. And so I don't think the fairness doctrine complaints are particularly compelling. Now, there is here, the one complaint that is compelling is the fact that regulators will get a say about what constitutes political neutrality. You know, and ultimately that's a way that could be leveraged against conservatives. It could be. But I think that in the grand scheme of things, the alternative to doing nothing is a lot worse for conservative speech. If they wrote those regulations in such a way that they still would violate conservative speech, then there are obviously First Amendment challenges that could be brought. If they're forcing discrimination, if the regulators try to force discrimination, there's a First Amendment challenge to the way that the regulations are written, which means that ultimately I think it will work. So that's my basic summation. I think this bill is probably a really good idea. I think the people who are complaining about it leading to government control of speech on the internet are wrong. Right now, the ideal world is one where there aren't these regulations in place and the Democrats can rely on leftist social media companies to do the dirty work of censoring contrary views for them. And a rule that gave the federal government power in this instance would be one that would be hard to abuse because the First Amendment's there as a backstop, and that would give Republicans a say in the way that these companies are governed. Quickly, questions. 2 minutes. Got to go to the gym. You know, can't miss a workout. No questions? None? I did not watch the reparations testimony this morning. Did not do that. Have an article coming out shortly on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Jack asks, what's the bottom line up front of this law? The bottom line up front of this law is that Facebook, Twitter, Google will have to get a certification from the FTC saying that they are politically neutral in their moderation decisions. If they don't have that certification, they don't get any of Section 230's liability protections, meaning they can be sued for defamation and they can be sued for wrongfully taking down people's content. That's the bottom line of what that bill says. I doubt it will pass too, but it's a great warning shot. It's a great warning shot. I don't think it'll pass because I don't know that the left will be there. I would say maybe a 5% chance that it passes, maybe less. But it's a good start. And it will help the civil rights case. It will help the civil rights case because in terms of making the Alexa, stop alarm. In terms of making the... Your alarm is not set. 1 second. Alexa, stop alarm. It's a sign I need to wrap it up. As Jack says, too epic to ever happen. The reason it's good for the civil rights program, and I'll end with this point, is that the second liability protection potentially could preempt state-level civil rights legislation. Because remember, the second part of 230, the second liability protection says that these companies are protected from any type of lawsuit based on their removing of content in good faith. If that is contingent on them not being politically neutral, that creates an obvious avenue for states to write their own legislation that protects political speech and protects against political deplatforming. And if they pass legislation, that would be coinciding with the federal law that is also trying to prevent and make it so that there's political neutrality. So that's what I got there. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. There'll be more on this. I'm going to do a full thread, but got to go work out. Figured I'd give you a quick heads up, quick hit. Hope you liked it. Thanks for watching. And I realize I haven't been doing a ton of these. There will be more. I'm back. See you soon. Peace.